The stall. I woke up to find myself sitting on the toilet in a washroom stall. Just to clarify, I was fully dressed, not with my pants around my ankles, and I was seated on the lid, not on the seat. The seat, the part with the hole in it. I wasn't sure why I was there, or how I had got there. In fact, I didn't really know exactly where I was, and I couldn't even remember my own name. My name. I realized I had to get out of there, get help, so I stood up and went to open the stall door and stopped dead, suddenly terrified. What if there was something out there, something that wanted to hurt me? Maybe I should wait a bit. I tried to remember who I was and where I was and how I had wound up there. Tried, but I couldn't remember a thing. It was all so misty, insubstantial, and vague. Was this all just a nightmare? Was I having a nightmare? Would I wake up soon? I thought about calling out, "Hello? Hello? Is there anyone there?" But once again I was stopped by the idea that someone might be lurking. Someone or something that might want to hurt me. I decided to wait a bit more to see if I could hear anything. Toilet flushed. It seemed to be off to my right. Was there another person, another man in here with me? I listened hard, but I was unable to detect any human sounds, the sounds of anyone moving around. Fumbling with the toilet paper dispenser, standing up, fumbling with the door, breathing. I couldn't hear the sound of breathing, or of shoes scuffling on the tile floor. Was there someone else in here? I waited to see if I could hear the sound of movement. But nothing. In the end, I had no choice but to get down on my hands and knees and stare under the partition to see if I could see feet or a pair of shoes. At least the tile floor looked reasonably clean. I stared under the gap. Nothing. The room was suddenly filled with a tsunami of sound, and my heart skipped a beat. But it was only water flushing through the urinals. I was straightening up off the floor when I saw the graffiti. It had been etched into the dark brown paint with a pointed object, a pen, keys, or a knife. It said, "My name is Dan Haller. I go to MISCU. I was in my 10 a.m. poli-sci class, and then suddenly I'm here. I'm frightened. There are things here bad." That was all it said. But that was enough. I sat back down stunned, trying to dissipate my mental fog. Who was I, and how did I get here? Was I a student too? Had I been in class before I got here? Remember, man. Try to remember. I think this place might be a washroom in a university, but I didn't know, and I couldn't remember. I sat there, lost in thought and in terror, for I don't know how long. It might have been 5 minutes, it might have been an hour. But in the end, I steeled myself to the fact I would have to leave the stall. After listening intently for another minute, I got up, slipped back the bolt, and opened the door to the stall. I took a quick look around, but the washroom was obviously empty. It was an ordinary-looking washroom with white walls, a tile floor, and a row of stalls, all painted an excremental brown. The only thing really unusual about it was that it was really clean, like it had hardly ever been used. There were none of the usual bathroom smells, but still, there was that graffiti. I caught sight of myself in the row of mirrors and stared. So that was me, eh? I can't say I recognized myself. This dude with long black hair, a lantern jaw, wearing jeans and a blue turtleneck. But then my mind was in a complete fog. I tiptoed across the room, moving as quietly as a mouse, and actually holding my breath. At the door I stopped to listen, my ear against the cold metal. But I could hear nothing, no sound from beyond. Behind me a toilet flushed, and I almost jumped out of my skin, barely suppressing a scream. I slowly pushed open the door, which creaked like something out of a horror movie. When I had it fully opened, I stopped to listen again, but there was no sound, nothing. The hall outside the washroom was just an ordinary hallway, with pissy yellow walls and gray institutional carpeting, all lit up by bands of overhead fluorescent lights. I was glad for the carpeting, as it would deaden my footfalls. But why was I trying to be so quiet? Just what was I frightened of? Once again I caught myself listening. And this time I did hear something, the sound of movement, coming from around a corner, just ahead of me. Once again I was terrified, frightened to my very core, convinced that the thing, for it was a thing, I was certain, that the thing around the corner meant to harm me. I quickly slipped back into the washroom, quietly shutting the door and hurrying to my old stall, my stall, where I crouched atop the toilet lid to keep my feet off the floor, to keep them from being visible. I waited. The door crashed open with a bang, and my heart was in my mouth. For several seconds, nothing happened. And then I heard it, not footsteps, but the sound of movement in the room. And then something like a fist slammed the door of the first stall, hard, as if they were trying to dent it or break it down. And then the invisible hand struck the door of the next stall, then the next one, the one next to mine, and then mine, and then all of them, over and over and over again, and faster and faster and faster, in a bone-jarring cacophony of pounding. I screamed at the top of my lungs. This was the end. It must be. And I felt a sudden desire to tell someone, anyone, what had happened to me. So I went to scratch a message in the paint with my fingernails, when I suddenly remembered. My name is Dan Haller, and I go to Miscue. I was in my 10 a.m. poli-sci class, and then suddenly I was here in this washroom, where there are things that want to hurt me. I felt a sudden urge to look up. Was something looking down at me, over the top of the stall? Some hideous face? To my amazement, the roof of the washroom seemed to vanish in a blaze of light, which left me momentarily blinded. Squinting, I was shocked to see a huge face, a huge human face, covered with a surgical mask, gazing down at me like I was a rat in a maze or some kind of lab animal. My eyes were blinded again by a bright and shiny object, which I saw to my horror was a humongous pair of tweezers. Tweezers! Being directed towards me. I had an accident in my pants then. My last hysterical thought was, "Oh God! God! No, I'm plucked!" The moral of the story? In life, you sometimes have to decide whether to sit, or get off the pot. If this is your first visit to my channel, please consider subscribing. My name is Warren, and I write and tell original ghost stories and original horror stories featuring such cryptids as the Night Floaters, werewolves, and the Black-Eyed Children. So again, please consider subscribing. Please help me to reach my goal of 2,500 subs. Till midnight. Cheers. Pictures used in today's video, courtesy of Pix Here. That's PX Here. While the music is the bone-chilling aftermath by that patron of the internet, Kevin MacLeod. Thank you for listening.